Just ahead on American Black Journal, the award-winning musical about the Temptations has arrived here in Motown. I'm going to talk with the native Detroiter who wrote the show, Dominique Morisseau, plus sports journalist Stephen A. Smith is here to talk about his participation in a fundraiser that celebrates the legacy of Detroit's WGPR-TV 62. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts right now.
From Delta faucets to Behr paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Nissan Foundation and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. The Tony Award-winning musical about Detroit's own Temptations has come home to where it all started. Ain't Too Proud, the life and times of the Temptations, is playing at the Detroit Opera House through August 28th. The show tells the story of Motown's premier male group as seen through the eyes of its only surviving original member, Otis Williams.
Please don't leave me, girl, don't you go. Ain't too proud to please, baby. Please don't leave me, girl, don't you go.
Ain't Too Proud won a Tony Award for Best Choreography, and it was nominated in several other categories, including 2 nods for its writer, Detroit-born playwright Dominique Morisseau. I spoke with Dominique about the success of this electrifying production. We talked about this show last time we talked. I think it was headed to New York. But it's a bigger deal, I think, for something like this, especially to play in Detroit, because we own this, right? This is our story, and you can't get away with anything.
No, absolutely not.
Telling this story to us. so talk about Ain't Too Proud. Yeah.
I'm really happy to have Ain't Too Proud, the life and times of the Temptations, here in Detroit at the Detroit Opera House. You know, it's been a long time coming. It's our Broadway tour. We were supposed to be, Detroit was supposed to be one of the first stops when we were originally going to do the tour in 2020, but we all know what happened in 2020. And so that delay has shifted things around. And so it feels like it's just been a long time coming to get here to Detroit to do the show. And we were on Broadway, and the COVID shut the show down on Broadway. And so now that we're doing this Broadway tour and we've been to all these cities, it just feels like a new life to be here. And it's more important. I mean, being in Detroit, you could just ask the cast, you could see it on their faces when they're performing. Like, this feels more important than Broadway. This is like the most important performance you could be doing is the ones you're doing here in Detroit right now.
Yeah. Well, and the story, of course, of the Temptations is in many ways the story of Detroit. Of course, it's the story of Motown as well, but it is a Detroit story in the sense of that perseverance, that focus on who you are and where it takes you in life, and the celebration of all of the things that make us Detroiters. I mean, the Temptations are Detroit in such a special way.
That's right. And I make sure, and I promise in the show that I'm not going to let you forget that this is the Temptations are a Detroit, homegrown Detroit group, that this group was born and raised here in the city that grew all of the rest of their contemporaries, you know. And I try to make sure that that stamp is really clear in this show.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about this being on Broadway as well. I mean, that was a very big deal when that happened. How did that audience receive this story?
Yeah. You know, it was really special. I mean, and they went bananas for it on Broadway. And honestly, if not for Omicron kind of ravaged all of Broadway, really, and a lot of shows closed prematurely, just too many. And a lot of them were the Black shows, which is like the heartbreak. But there was a moment in which Ain't Too Proud was on 45th. Well, the theater is on 45th and 46th Street, because the front of it is on 45th and the back of it is on 46th Street. And then my show Skeleton Crew was on 47th Street. So for a very short period of time, like a month, you know, I had 2 Broadway shows taking up 3 blocks of New York City Broadway real estate, you know, and that was kind of exciting. I was like, whoa, Detroit is taking over New York right now. And so it's just been really amazing because it was so well received, and it kind of doesn't make sense that we're not still on Broadway, except for, you know, it just, everything Broadway almost came back, I won't say too soon, but too fast, you know, and without enough foresight of how to like maintain if a surge happened, you know. And so, but the show was so, you know, people loved it. They were, it was one of those special ones. And you can also tell, like, it's just kind of rare for Black musical theater artists to be able to be their full selves on a Broadway stage. You know, they're used to having to like cover or be told that they're singing to, you know, make too many runs, you know, that that somehow their speech pathology, that they're not speaking articulately enough, you know, for Broadway to be on a stage. And I'm like, no, you need to sound like your elders and your ancestors right now in this show. You need to sound like
Detroit.
You need to sound like Detroit. You need to sound like around the corner and up the block, you know? And so I think it was kind of freeing for all of the artists who were participating in the show to be able to be their full self. So when you watch it, you're just blown away by all this Black talent that doesn't normally get to do what they can do all the time.
Yeah. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this play also won a Tony for choreography. Talk about that. I mean, that's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, you know, it was nominated for 12 Tony Awards, and we took the choreography Tony. And I was like, if there was one Tony that we needed besides obviously the book, which I feel like we got robbed on, you know, not just because it was me, but because I knew I felt very strongly, and I think other people did too, that was the one that should have gotten it. But I was gonna throw my shoe at somebody if we didn't get that choreography Tony, because I just couldn't. I mean, you can't. The choreography in the show is outstanding, and you can't even like. It's the Temptations, and then there's also a touch of so many more groups that followed them. You know, it sort of like does this nod to the past and to the generations that came after them, right? You know, it's a little bit of a New Edition nod, and there's a little bit of nod of other styles, and I think that how could you not go crazy for that choreography?
But my life is incomplete. I'm so blue, 'cause I can't get next to you. I can't get next to you, baby. I can't get next to you. I can't get next to you, baby. I can't get next to you. Oh, next to you.
That choreography Tony went to Sergio Trujillo, who was our choreographer, and he got that alongside, you know, Edgar Gardner, who was his associate choreographer. I mean, there was a lot of gifted minds and talent that went into that choreography that was made it stellar.
Yeah. Well, and thinking and speaking about the celebration of Black art on Broadway, that nod for choreography, I mean, this is obviously, you know, a very Black show in every way. And the choreography reflects our culture in a way that other plays don't do on Broadway. And for those reasons that you're talking about, they always say you can't be that much. on
That's
Broadway.
right.
Here you did it, and
Yeah.
you know, you're recognized with the best award that they have.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. I mean, it's deserved, and then and so so many more things were deserved as well. And I think everybody who got nominated deserved their nomination. Like, it was a
Yeah,
fantastic production, and
yeah,
so I'm really proud. And this company that we have here in Detroit, they're not some of them were like covers for us on Broadway. Some of them came from Broadway, but a lot of them did not. They just joined for the tour, and they rival. Trust me, you're not getting us. I get nervous when I look at them. Like, okay, are we gonna fall? It's like something gonna lose some quality. And I watch the show, and I'm like, I've been here from the beginning. I've been with this show since we were like in the Bay Area, just trying it out
hmm
before we got to Broadway. We went to like 3 cities. I've seen a lot of rotations of this show, and you're getting a stellar cast.
yeah, yeah.
You're getting a stellar cast. Yeah, this is a great production and a great group of people.
Yeah. The success that this had in New York, the success that you've had in New York, you feel like things are changing in terms of opportunity for African American writers, African American material, material that's influenced by African American culture. I mean, Broadway was so closed to us for so long, and now it
Yeah.
seems there's almost a flood of recognition in some ways that, hey,
Yeah.
that wasn't all right.
Well, coming off of 2022, this past season, 21-22, really, I guess it was the end of 2021, but there ended up being 8 Black shows on Broadway, which is unprecedented.
Mhm.
You'd be lucky if you catch 1 or 2 at the same time, in like several years, but in 1 year,
Mhm.
all of these Black shows together were on Broadway. And while that felt really, it was a milestone, and it gives you hope. But I always say, don't make that optical. Don't make that an optical illusion. We were also the first ones brought back during we brought theater back from the pandemic.
Mhm.
So we were also the pandemic test dummies. You know what I mean? So it was like, why it looks good, but
Mhm.
also, whose shows all closed first? You know,
Right.
whose shows didn't get to stay up on Broadway because of the fraught time that we were having to do theater in, and so you can't look at those Black shows and what happened to our shows on Broadway and then go, well, we tried, and move on. You know what I mean? You have to be like, oh no, you look what you put us up against.
Yeah.
And look how even still there was a hunger and a desire to see this work on Broadway. So imagine when we're not in the thick of a plague that was like more aggressive than the original plague,
Mhm. Mhm.
imagine what we could do if not for those circumstances. And I think if those things are not taken into consideration, then you're not really trying to change Broadway. But I do think at their time, there's enough being called for and demanded, frankly, from theater artists to change not just Broadway, but theater across the country,
Mhm.
and make it better and more equitable. And so I believe in that change more than I believe in the optical illusions.
In addition to Motown, Detroit is, of course, home to the nation's first Black-owned and operated television station. WGPR-TV 62 went on the air in 1975 and launched the careers of several African-American media professionals before being sold in 1995. The site is now a broadcast museum founded by the WGPR Historical Society. And next month, the group is hosting a major fundraiser celebrating minorities in the media. I spoke with the event's keynote speaker, Stephen A. Smith of ESPN, and WGPR Historical Society President, Joe Spencer. So, Joe, I'm going to start with you. Tell me about this event at WGPR, this fundraiser.
Well, the WGPR Historical Society is putting on a fundraiser for the William V. Banks Museum. We have it scheduled for September 9 and 10. It's actually a 2-day event. We are raising funds to expand the museum and to expand our training that we plan for the museum, and just have some new exhibits. And we have a very, very nice lineup for our Enduring Legacy banquet of people that we're going to honor. And Stephen A. Smith has agreed to be our keynote speaker, so we are planning to have a very exciting evening on September 10th at the Icon here in Detroit.
Stephen A. Smith, welcome to American Black Journal. Welcome to Detroit. It seems to me when I watch you on ESPN or other places I see you, I think all the time about the kinds of opportunities that you've had as an African-American man, that I've had as an African-American man in media. And I think about WGPR, which, went on the air here when I was about 4 years old and was the first place I could see people who look like me on television doing their thing and being in control of the space, being the owners, being the operators, being the managers. Talk about how stations like GPR influence your career.
Well, to me, it's never really been, whether it's a station or it's a company, it's about the individuals, because as an individual, that's what you gravitate to. We should think about it more expansively. We should think about institutions that have really played the role as pioneers and spearheading movements that ultimately benefit the African-American community and what have you. But on far too many occasions, there's such a level of loftiness that gets attached to it that you don't view it that way. It's the individuals that you attach yourself to. Joe, I've come to know because my boss is Mr. Dave Roberts, who is a Detroit native. He's one of the elite executives in this game. And the relationship that I have with him, what he's done for me, what he's meant to my career, I just can't say enough. But it's not because of the jobs that I've been able to capture, the money that I've been able to accumulate, and I've been blessed and fortunate enough to have a prosperous career, particularly over the last decade. The level of guidance that I'm given by being able to have a front row seat to watch him work enabled me to do other things. 10 years ago, I was an on-air talent. And over the years under his stewardship, I've grown and I've matured and I've become more successful. But now I own my own production company. And I'm about to own and start my own podcast. And I'm an executive producer. And I'm not just making decisions for myself, but for other people. I'm employing, I'm firing, I'm doing a whole bunch of things that come along with, some of it is great, some of it is not so great. But having an individual like that to provide the level of guidance and counsel and tutelage along the way, and not always directly, sometimes just through osmosis. Those are the kind of things that you can't, you just can't put a price on because it's so invaluable that ultimately it allows you to propel yourself to a point where you can ultimately become a company, where you can ultimately become an institution, and you can ultimately have a profound, lengthy impact that will potentially affect generations. That's what it's all about. And when you find individuals that you can attach, you can identify with, that can provide you the guidance and tutelage through osmosis, through direct counseling and tutoring and interaction, or just by being able to play the role of spectator, you just can't put a price on those experiences.
Yeah. So Stephen, talk a little about barriers and obstacles that you might have faced as a younger journalist before you got opportunities that were about race and opportunity.
I remember when I was an intern coming out of college, and I thought I had an impeccable resume. And I was competing against thousands of students, and I missed out on the opportunity because the person's name was Allen, A-L-L-A-N. And I spelt his name A-L-A-N. And I was immediately disqualified from that opportunity. And when you see experience like that, I'd like to believe that person regrets not giving me the opportunity. But the reality of the situation is that if you're comparing it to other resumes that didn't make that kind of mistake, then they deserve the opportunity and I didn't. And so when you talk about obstacles, you're talking about the need to make sure that you maneuver, you find out where the minefields lie. You find out how to maneuver your way through those minefields. You take stock of the obstacles and the barriers that are placed before you. Being Black, being a Black man, being from an impoverished background, not having a proverbial silver spoon in your mouth, not necessarily knowing people well enough to, to ingratiate yourself in such a way that you've cultivated relationships that will span potentially a lifetime or at least your career. All of these things are things that you're learning, and the classroom can't teach that to you. It can tell you about it, but it can't teach it. Only practical experience gets out there. Who you're communicating with, how you communicate with them, how do you present yourself, how do you articulate whatever message that you want to say. When you go before somebody that is interviewing or talking to you, are you talking to them in a fashion that you're telling them the kind of things that would benefit them, or are you telling them the kind of things that would benefit you while you got your hand out for their help? Who are you going to be more inclined to help? Somebody that's looking to help you, or somebody that's looking to help yourself, they're looking to help themselves. These are all the kind of things that you think about, but you don't think about nearly as much as you should when you're young, Black, impoverished, didn't have the connections to those people who are in the know that could provide you the counsel and tutelage so you don't make those kind of mistakes. These are the kind of things that happen that no one ever tells you. And those are barriers in and of itself. It's the barrier of the unknown. And you got to hope and pray that you learn as much as you possibly can, as early as you possibly can make it, while also hoping that you're lucky enough to run into somebody that would give you the benefit of the doubt because they understand what plight you're trying to fight through.
Joe, just sitting here listening to Stephen talk about this, it makes me think of all those barriers you all broke in 1975 and all the people who benefited from you breaking through those barriers.
Well, there's two things that Stephen said that is, to me, just rings home so true. Number one, she spoke of David Roberts, and WGPR gave David Roberts his very first job, and he got his initial training. And so much about the success that a person has depends on, as Stephen has said, who you know, who gives you the opportunity. And that's what WGPR did. It gave opportunity to many young journalists, as well as technicians and writers and salespeople who would not have been in the broadcast game had it not been for William V. Banks, who is our enduring legacy, and what is part of what we are celebrating in our event, our fundraiser, come September 10. The enduring legacies of so many men and women who have laid the groundwork and allowed other people to step on their shoulders. And David Roberts is a perfect example, because I would not know Stephen A. Smith if it had not been for David Roberts. And David Roberts began with us as an intern. Now he's executive vice president of a major network, and that shows you the impact of WGPR. And we're just so glad that Stephen's being a part of what we're doing.
All right. Well, congratulations on the fundraiser. Of course, congratulations on all the great work at that museum at WGPR. It really is. It is mind blowing to walk through there and feel all the things that happen there and see all the results up on the walls. And of course, Stephen A., thanks for coming to town to anchor all this.
I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to have you come back on the show to talk about the Lions later this fall. So
you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure you keep yourself in high spirits. You got a lot of things to look forward to in that city of Detroit. The Lions ain't one of them.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Take care. Thank you.
That is going to do it for us this week. You can find out more about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. Take care, and we'll see you next time.